What matters is that your brain experienced using English in a safe and comfortable situation. Each time you do this, you teach your brain that speaking English is not something to fear, and that small, imperfect practice is slowly changing your relationship with speaking in a very real way. I want to tell you something about your comfort zone, but probably not in the way you've heard before. People often say, step outside your comfort zone, as if it's easy, as if you can wake up one morning, decide not to be afraid anymore, and suddenly everything changes. But that is not how it works. Your comfort zone is not just a way of thinking. It is built from experiences that your brain has learned to see as safe. So instead of pushing yourself into a big English conversation that feels overwhelming, start at the edge. Leave one simple comment on a YouTube video in English. Something as small as, "This was very helpful." That's enough. The next day, write 2 sentences in English somewhere. These may seem like tiny actions, but they matter more than you think. And little by little, your brain starts to feel safer. Before we go any further, I want you to do something with me right now, not later, right now. Find a comfortable place to sit. Take a deep breath and repeat these sentences out loud. Don't just read them in your mind. Say them with your own voice. Ready? Let's go. I am training my brain to speak English. I am training my brain to speak English. Now you repeat. Here is another. I do not need to be perfect to communicate. I do not need to be perfect to communicate. Now you repeat. Every time I speak, I get a little better. Every time I speak, I get a little better. Now you repeat. I can speak English one sentence at a time. I can speak English one sentence at a time. Now you repeat. Very nice. My confidence grows every time I practice. My confidence grows every time I practice. Now you repeat. And here is one last sentence. I am becoming a more confident English speaker every day. I am becoming a more confident English speaker every day. Well done. If some of those sentences felt a little strange, that's okay. The important thing is that you said them out loud. Every time you use your voice in English, you are teaching your brain that speaking is something normal, safe, and possible. And that is exactly how confidence begins to grow. Can I be honest with you about something? One of the biggest reasons many people struggle to speak English today is the way English was taught to them in school. Think about your own experience. For years, you sat in a classroom reading textbooks, memorizing grammar rules, learning vocabulary, writing answers on paper, and taking tests in silence. But how often were you asked to have a real conversation? How often do you make mistakes and learn from them without feeling embarrassed? For many people, the answer is almost never. School taught English as a subject to study and pass exams, not as a language to use in everyday life. So now, when you try to speak, your brain knows many rules and words, but it has very little real experience using them in real conversations. And that is why speaking can feel so difficult, even when you understand a lot of English already. Here is your third brain training tip. At first, it might feel a little strange, but give it a chance for just 1 week before you decide whether it works or not. Start talking to yourself in English throughout the day. You don't have to say anything out loud. Just use English inside your mind. When you are cooking, think, I am cutting the vegetables. When you are walking outside, think, the weather is nice today. After a long day, you might think, I feel a little tired right now. There is no notebook, no grammar test, and no pressure to be perfect. You are simply using English to describe your everyday life. This small habit helps your brain become more familiar with thinking in English instead of constantly translating from another language. And the more comfortable your brain becomes with thinking in English, the easier it becomes to speak it. Children learn language this way naturally, and your brain can develop the same skill no matter how old you are. Now I want to talk about something called muscle memory. Because speaking English is not only a brain activity, it is also a physical one. Your mouth, your tongue, and your throat are all involved when you speak. And just like any other muscles in your body, they become more comfortable through repetition. That is why speaking out loud is so important. So let's do a quick practice together. Don't just read the sentences in your mind. Say them out loud and try to copy the rhythm and pronunciation as closely as you can. Are you ready? So, let's begin. I can speak English one sentence at a time. I can speak English one sentence at a time. Now you repeat. Mistakes help me learn and improve. Mistakes help me learn and improve. Now you repeat. Every day, my English is getting better. Every day, my English is getting better. Now you repeat. Here is the last sentences. I am becoming more confident every time I speak. I am becoming more confident every time I speak. Great. If those sentences felt a little awkward, that's completely normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to get your mouth used to producing English sounds comfortably and naturally. The more you do this, the easier speaking will begin to feel. Here is your fourth brain training tip. Every time you make a mistake, don't punish yourself for it. Instead, do something simple. Correct yourself and keep going. If you use the wrong word, say the right one and continue. Making a mistake is not a sign that you are failing. In fact, correcting a mistake is proof that learning is happening. Every time you notice an error and fix it out loud, your brain is adjusting, improving, and getting stronger. It is exactly how real learning works. The fifth brain training tip is to reduce the time between thinking and speaking. Here is how it works. When a thought comes to you in your native language, try not to fully build the perfect sentence in your head first, and then translate it into English. Instead, start speaking the English version before it feels complete or perfect in your mind. I know this can feel uncomfortable. Your brain naturally wants to wait until everything is ready before it speaks. But that waiting is exactly what creates the delay and makes speaking feel difficult. Try pushing the sentence out while it is still forming. Let it be a little rough. Let it be slightly unfinished at the start, or even uncertain at the end. This is actually how fluent speakers often think. They begin speaking and trust that the rest of the sentence will come naturally. And with practice, it does. Let me tell you about a simple thing that changed everything for one of my students. She was afraid to speak English on the phone. Face to face, she could manage. She could read expressions, use hand gestures, and quickly check if the other person understood her. But on the phone, it was different. No faces, no support, just pure fear and silence. So we tried something very small. Every day for 2 weeks, she made one short phone call in English to a shop or a local office and asked just one simple question like, "What time do you open?" or "Do you have this item available?" One question, one call, about 30 seconds. On the first day, her voice was shaking. On the second day, it was a little more comfort. By the end of 2 weeks, her brain had successfully handled 12 phone calls in English. Every small conversation you manage in English becomes new evidence. Every mistake you make and survive becomes new evidence. Every imperfect sentence you complete becomes new evidence. In a way, you are not just learning English, you are building a new file inside your brain. And little by little, that new file starts to become stronger than the old one. I want to pause here and ask you something personal. When was the last time you felt even a small moment of pride about your English? Not a big achievement,